George of the jungle, strong as he can be.
You know, there's no way I can afford to buy a house right now because my debt ratios are too high. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Welcome into thecreditjungle.com today. This is George Anderson, and we're going to be talking about what actually is counted in your debt to income ratios. So, first of all, the obvious one is your house payment. Now, some people who are paying rent say, well, doesn't my rent count into my house payment? Well, no. Do you plan on continuing to pay rent in your apartment after you buy your house? So that's a no answer. But some people think about that, and it's like, no. Your rent goes away. You're going to be replacing that with a housing expense for the mortgage. So the mortgage payment is going to be your new one. So that becomes the primary expense that we look at. And the other things that people think about is that, like, well, you know, my health insurance premium is kind of high. I've got a life insurance premium. Well, insurance premiums, those are voluntary, you know, so those are not considered into the debt ratios. And some of the other voluntary stuff that would be in there are things like childcare, because maybe you can have family members that can work that out with you. Same thing, cell phone bill. I don't know, some people probably can't live without their cell phone. I think it'd be difficult. But cell phone bill is not in there, and other utilities are not counted in there. Now, interestingly enough, on VA loans, we actually do look at child care expenses and utilities as part of the debt ratios. So there are certain things that just don't come in there. For the most part, we are mostly looking at what goes on your credit report. Those are the debts that are going to be considered in your debt ratios. But we're also going to look at your pay stubs. And somebody says, well, what if I have, you know, a child support payment or something like that on there? Yeah, then we're going to have to look at a divorce decree or a child support order and count that in there, but not your 401k loan. Why wouldn't you count a 401k loan? Well, because you're paying back yourself. It's a collateralized loan that you're borrowing basically against your own savings. If you were to default on that loan, then you would just have some tax consequences, because they would say, okay, well, you didn't pay your loan back, so now you've got to do this. But most people have it deducted through payroll, and it's probably not going to really come into play unless you lose your employment. So what are some things that are on the credit report that don't count in your debt ratios, or that do count in your debt ratios that you don't have a payment on? Lots of people right now, because student loans, most federally insured student loans, are in a forbearance for probably another calendar year in a lot of cases. So a lot of people think, out of sight, out of mind, I'm not making the payments, there's no interest accruing on them. Well, the fact is that, yeah, we do have to count, and VA has its own formula. I went through this in another video. But every type of loan is going to take into an account in some way what those student loan balances are based on the total amount of debt owing. So if you've got 10 grand or 100,000 or more student loan debt, even though you're not making a payment, that might be the difference maker for your debt ratios. So before you figure out what you think you have included in your debt ratios, why don't you give me a call? Thanks for coming into thecreditjungle.com today. Remember, you can push button, get Mortgage Professional, and I'd be happy to talk with you about your situation. Have a great day.